It's the Fitness Lab Pittsburgh podcast, a new episode every week. A podcast about movement, part of making your life complete. Fitness Lab Pittsburgh, aka FitLab PGH, brings you interviews with people in the Pittsburgh area who understand movement is part of what makes life complete. Looking for a new movement idea or just want to hear interesting stories about people who make movement a priority? This is the podcast for you. Whether you consider the gym, dojo, or fitness studio your third place, or just want to learn more about movement, activity, and fitness to enhance your life, give FitLab PGH a listen. We interview locals in the Pittsburgh area who make Pittsburgh a great place to move. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Subscribing is free and gives you notifications when we release new episodes. Each podcast episode will be long enough to pique your interest and short enough to hold your attention. Have an idea for an episode? Know somebody we should interview? Or just want to connect with us? Drop us an email, fitlabpgh@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at fitlabpgh. Already a fan of FitLab PGH? Check out our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast for movement professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers weekly interviews with movement professionals featuring topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoy our next interview, starting now. Welcome back to another edition of the Fitness Lab Pittsburgh, aka FitLab PGH podcast. We are a podcast that has the ethos movement is a lifestyle, not just an activity. We want to give a big shout out to Richard Butler for introducing us to today's guest, and a big shout out to today's guest for being one of the first FitLab PGH guests who has agreed to appear via Zoom rather than us traveling to her or her traveling to us. Thanks, COVID, for decreasing our ability to cross bridges and go through tunnels to meet people, but we can still take advantage of technology and learn about neat movement events in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. Today, we are with Jessica Kury. She is the Director of Special Events for the Special Olympics of Pennsylvania, and we're going to find out about how she got involved with the Special Olympics, what exactly the Special Olympics is if you don't know, and I want to know how the Special Olympics of Pennsylvania ended up headquartered in Pittsburgh. I was surprised to learn that when I was doing my research, and then I think she's got a special event that's coming up that's got an acronym as far as that you can participate in virtually with other Special Olympic athletes. So Jessica, thanks for taking time to talk to FitLab PGH.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
My favorite question I always want to ask people that I interview for FitLab PGH, and that I always do, is, are you a Pittsburgh native? If you're a Pittsburgh native, why are you still here? If you're not a Pittsburgh native, what brought you to Pittsburgh?
I am. I'm a Pittsburgh native, born and raised. And baptized on Super Bowl Sunday. So, I'm a Pittsburgh girl, and really 1970s. I'm giving away my age now, but yeah, Pittsburgh girl, born and raised, schooled out of state, ended up coming back about, it's probably been about 15 years now that I've been back in the city of Pittsburgh, but I did the unthinkable. I moved. I was a North Hills kid and actually crossed a tunnel and went through a tunnel and crossed a bridge, I believe, just to move to the South Hills when we came back, which apparently is just something you don't do around here. So, yeah.
I know we've interviewed a couple of people who have done that, and one of them said that her mother still refuses to come see her in the South Hills from the North Hills. It's a one-way train or a one-way car ride that way because mom apparently does not go south.
That's great. It's 15 minutes. It's such an easy drive, really.
And I'm always curious when we interview people for this, what drew you into being involved with what you do? You're with the Special Olympics. What was your background to get you in this? Were you somebody who you were in high school, maybe you took an adapted class, or maybe you volunteered and said, boy, this is a really neat thing, I want to be involved with this? Or was that something that maybe happened afterwards or a little bit later on in life?
Yeah, so interestingly, I did not study any kind of adaptive movement or anything like that through high school or college. My degree is actually in public speaking and writing. And I work for the development team, so I do a lot of both. In development, we obviously do fundraising for Special Olympics. I've been working in nonprofit for a long time. I've worked for a substance abuse clinic and an animal shelter. And then most recently, Special Olympics. I've been here for 5 years now. And when I work for a nonprofit, having a mission, having a cause is something that's really important to me. If I'm going to give, so much time and attention, it's going to have to be to something that I really truly believe in. And this organization, this cause, is absolutely something that I do believe in. I grew up with a cousin who is an athlete, and we're only 6 months apart. So this organization has actually been part of my family and my life since we were children. Our age starts about 7, where we start training younger children on appropriate eating habits. It's a young athletes program, then getting them ready, and then they can start participating as they get older. So she had started at a very young age and is still active. We're going to be 45. So she's been doing this for a really long time. So this has literally been in my life for over 35 years.
I know I want to learn more about that because I seem to recall at some point reading somewhere in a blog or something like that there are some Special Olympic athletes who are 60 plus years old who have probably been competing even longer than your cousin is.
Yeah, we do. We have athletes ranging in age from 7 to, into their 80s.
We are, as FitLab Pittsburgh, we're a podcast that promotes movement. And we always like to find out the activities that people do themselves that we interview, even if they're working for specific companies or specific nonprofits. I know we interviewed a lady in the past who said, well, I'm not really an athlete. I dance 3 or 4 times a month and I swim and I walk. It's like, no, you are an athlete. I tell people when I teach health classes at universities, it's like, your goal is to be able to do whatever you want to do, when you want to do, literally until the day you die, not have that fear. So I'm curious, when you were growing up, were you an active kid or were you somebody who wasn't active and maybe became active a little later on in life?
Yeah, always been an active kid. I always participated in sports, all different sports, from tennis to softball, soccer, you name it. I was never afraid to try it. Physical activity was something that, for me, it was just a very natural part of my life and something that comes easily to me. I've danced and done gymnastics for a very long time, since I was little, and that type of physical movement is something that just has always been very natural and very comfortable for me. And I've kept doing things as I've gotten older that definitely changed some of the things I can't do what I used to do, but I'm still active, still out there, and definitely still moving.
I'm always curious. My 2 favorite questions I ask, no matter who I interview, is most interesting or unusual movement activity that you've done in the past. It may not be unusual to some people, but it's the one that if you're sitting around with friends having a glass of wine or a cup of coffee and you want to say, hey, I did this once and it was really cool. We've had everything. I interviewed somebody once who said, I took a yoga class once. It was enough. To skydiving, which I would say I've never done and I never will skydive. So I'm always interested in what people do or what they find is the most interesting thing that they've done in the past, and would they do it again?
Yeah. So I guess there's a couple of interesting things. And, 2 of the classes were at the same gym. There is a circus class, like an acrobatics and circus class, that also has a bungee fitness just in Ben Avon. And I love doing both of those things. It was an absolute blast, ton of fun. Yes, I would go back in a heartbeat. Fantastic classes. It's really, really fun. Definitely a different kind of movement when you're on that bungee and you're strapped in. The easiest burpees I've ever done in my life. Just say that. And in flying push-ups, no problem. It's fantastic. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I think those would probably be the 2 most unique things I've ever done. Something that is just a lot of fun and really cool, and I would do it again. I don't know how unusual. Some people think it's unusual. I did goat yoga last summer around this time. Have you heard of the Have You Heard crew?
I've heard of goat yoga or goat yoga, and I've seen pictures of it. Having had goats growing up, I'm not sure I would want to do it. But I think, I think the wonderful thing is doing different things. And I think so many people get stuck into, this is what I do. It's like, try something new. The worst that happens is you had 45 or 50 minutes of your life where you're going, what the heck am I doing here?
Yeah, I'll do anything just about once.
And then my other favorite question to ask people is there one movement activity, whether it's a single event or vacation or something that's like, once I get some more time, or once we figure out a way that it's safe to travel with COVID or to move around and be with other people with COVID, is there anything that's like, I'm going to do this at some point?
Yeah, there is definitely one thing. I made a decision this past winter and told my husband that I want to bobsled. That's ultimately on my bucket, my dream list. I want to do a bobsled. And there's a really cool Olympic village in New York. I believe it's in the Catskill Mountains.
It's Lake Placid in the Adirondacks.
That's it.
Yes.
That's the Adirondacks. That's it. And that's exactly. So I found this and said to him, Lake Placid still actually has running bobsleds. You can do this. We could do, biathlon. That would be really super cool because we like to cross country ski and we like to shoot. And I'm like, why not put it together? I know it's really hard. I know it's really hard. But
I believe their bobsled run, not only does it run in the winter, but I believe they have it on wheels that if you travel to Lake Placid in the summer, you can also do the bobsled in the summer on wheels on the same track.
So fingers crossed that come winter, we're a little bit out of this mess and we can do that. I think it would be a really fun trip.
Very cool. I've been in Lake Placid and it is absolutely beautiful.
Nice.
So let's talk a little bit about the Special Olympics and what it is. I think my first question, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, when I was doing some of my research for this before I talked to you, I was obviously aware of the Special Olympics. I knew there were state chapters, but I did not know the state chapter was headquartered in Pittsburgh. And I think the question anybody who's not from Pittsburgh would ask is, just because people tend to think when you say, I'm from Pennsylvania, oh, Philadelphia, how far are you? They think Philadelphia is the center of the state, even if it's at the far end. Yeah. Did you by any chance know, how did the Special Olympics of Pennsylvania end up headquartered in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I'm totally going to burst your bubble. It's headquartered in Philly.
Okay.
So sorry. You were
my
really
bubble
excited there, and I didn't want to tell you for a minute. You were like Pittsburgh proud,
Always learning. That's the purpose of FitLab Pittsburgh.
But we do have a location in Robinson. So we have our state office is headquartered out of Philadelphia. And then I had mentioned earlier when we were talking before the podcast started that our local programs all run as their own small entities. So our counties run their own local programs. So we have 56 across the state. And that all feeds up into Special Olympics Pennsylvania as a state. And we have an office in Philadelphia that's our largest. Then we have a second office in the Pittsburgh area that's a little bit larger. It's got some programming and development staff. And then in Central PA, there's a small office in State College as well that runs some programming and field work. So those are our three main offices.
And I know a lot of people are listening to this and maybe they're just starting to listen to FitLab Pittsburgh, or they just saw, you meet somebody in an elevator and they ask you, they say, Jessica, what is the Special Olympics, or what are the Special Olympics? What's your 30-second elevator thing before they get off and go running on to the next thing in their life? Because they potentially could become a volunteer.
Yeah. So the Special Olympics is actually turning 50 years old. And one thing I learned when I started is that this is a movement that was brought about by Eunice Kennedy Shriver. And she had a sister with intellectual disability and felt that they were so overlooked as a population and that there was so much more they were capable of. And she wanted to find a really cool way for people to learn about this and get to know it. And she realized that one of the best ways to do that was through physical activity and movement. And it really leveled that playing field. So 50 years ago, a movement was born in Chicago. In her backyard is where she held the first games. And we've been going strong ever since, and each state that, wants to get a charter has done that. The movement has expanded. It is now international, which a lot of people don't realize, but there are Special Olympics chapters all over the world. And what it is it's a goal that, like I said, it levels that playing field. It is a movement to get people to know people with intellectual disabilities are so very much like them. And this brings it to everybody in a really fun, very non-threatening, really kind of cool way.
And I know you were mentioning at the beginning of the podcast that individuals can start participating with education as far as how to eat and things like that as young as the age of 7. And I know one of the things that just is a problem across the U.S. is obesity. Was this something when Unistriver started it, it was not only movement related, but also talking about the other health aspects? Or is this something that kind of has adapted as Special Olympics has adapted as it's grown older?
It's both. It always started out a whole person wellness approach. But, you start with the basics and you start with what everybody thinks of when they think of Special Olympics. You start with the sports and the activity. And we have grown, and over the years, even just our state has continued to expand the services that are offered through our Healthy Athletes program and all the different pillars that our organization stands for. So eating, movement, healthcare and screenings. We've trained a lot of our athletes to be what we call global messengers. So they are trained to speak on our behalf. We've had athletes speak all over the world, to people on Capitol Hill, to talk to lobbyists about things that are important. So it is truly a whole person approach. It's their intellect and pushing them to always do their best. It's their physical, teaching them how to eat, how to move, and how to adapt things. We adapt a lot of things for different skill levels, and how to play, how to be part of a team. And it gives them some structure. So it is absolutely a whole person approach, and it has grown to be even more of that as we've gotten older. And it will continue to grow too. We're definitely not done. We still have a lot of work to do. And
I know that what people think of was they think of the Olympics. They think of the Olympics where you see Michael Phelps and other people like that. It's every 4 years. And we know Tokyo was postponed at least this year. But we were talking before recording, and Special Olympics activities are still going on, although virtually. How did that work, and how big a change was it both for the volunteers and the staff, and also for the athletes to say, hey, because I know everybody's probably seen things on KDKA or other things where they show when a Special Olympics event is, maybe they get in at Three River Stadium, or you're able to see large groups of people, and now you can't have large groups of people.
Yeah. So, the interesting thing before we went virtual, before this, pandemic kind of changed and shook up everybody's lives, we were having competitions all the time. And that is something that people are not aware of. We have hundreds of competitions, and there's practice constantly going on. So it is a year-long thing. And as our athletes compete, they start at their local level. And as they qualify, it's a little bit more like high school with deals at that point. You qualify local, then you go to a sectional. And then after you qualify from your sectional, you go to state, to national, and then to international. So we have been sending athletes all over the world to compete. And most recently, we sent athletes to Abu Dhabi. And we had them competing in all different sports. This year, we were supposed to have a winter sports in Sweden that we were sending 9 athletes from Pennsylvania. That didn't work out. Obviously, that didn't work out real well for anybody, but they compete all year long. And that is something that people don't know about. So in this new world, this pandemic world that we're having, we have tried to bring some sense of community and some sense of normal to these athletes. It's definitely been a switch for everybody, for the staff, for the volunteers, very especially for the athletes, because they don't have their friends that they get to go see and spend time with. And that a lot of them have been with us for such a long time, and that's been a really hard change. But the decision to go virtual for us, we needed to continue doing something. We needed them to still have people that they could see and talk to. So we do Zoom meetings. Sometimes the local programs run bingos or do scavenger hunts and things like that. We've tried to run our sports camp virtually since they can't be there this year, do our opening and closing ceremonies, and make it as big of a deal for them as we would if we were all in person. It's just that we're using technology now to do that. Yeah, it's been a giant swing, but I'll tell you, we have an amazing marketing department and some really strong social media presence and people. So they've done an awesome job bringing everything into the homes for these athletes.
And what determines with the individual athletes which sports they participate in, or is it fairly normal for athletes to participate in multiple sports or multiple events across the year?
Most of our athletes do compete in multiple sports, and it's often what's available within their program. As I was mentioning, some of the larger programs like Allegheny County, and then of course, Philadelphia has a pretty big program as well as compared to maybe a smaller central PA, like a tinier program like Bradford. It depends on what types of volunteers they have and what their ability is to bring certain sports. If an athlete is interested, let's say in soccer, and their local program doesn't have a soccer team, they could go to a neighboring county. They're absolutely allowed to do that. So between all the counties across the state, there's 22 Olympic style sports that they can choose from. And as I mentioned, if there's something they're interested in and it's not local, if they can get themselves to a practice, they're absolutely allowed to compete with another county in another program.
And I get the sense from talking to you and from what you've said that the volunteers are long-term volunteers. In other words, it's not just a show up on Saturday morning for 2 hours and thanks for all your help, we'll never see you again. These are people who are deeply invested, not only on a weekly basis, but even for many years. How does that work with how the volunteers interact with the Special Olympic athletes?
Yeah, they are deeply committed. Our volunteers are absolutely the heart of the organization. There's no way we could actually have this organization survive without them. And I truly say that is not cliche, but if you can imagine having 20,000 athletes and how many coaches would need and assistant coaches, you couldn't possibly hire that many staff. So they are absolutely the blood of the organization. They have management teams that are for each county. So, Erie has their own management team that is responsible for the meetings and the programming, and they do fundraising. They do an absolute ton for this organization. And we do have different classes of volunteers. So those people that are running programs and helping volunteer as coaches, they're a different class of volunteer, because we do have the come on a Saturday, see you for 2 hours people as well, because those are folks that we need help when we're running events. So if there's a competition, they might need help with timing or setting up or tear down or handing out lunches and things like that. So we do have those volunteers as well. So there's opportunities for people, depending on what their availability is, to be involved somehow, whether it's casually for an event or on a more committed, regular basis.
And I know we'll have information in the show notes, but people are listening to this and they're going, I'd like to volunteer for that. How do I find out how I volunteer or how I get involved?
Mm-hmm. So if you're interested in a more long-term volunteer opportunity, I would tell you to look at your local program first. So depending on where you live, let's just say you live in, Butler County, go online and find Special Olympics Butler, and all the information will pull up for who your local program contact is. You can also find all of this on our state website and see a listing of all the different programs and reach out to the county where you want to volunteer. Each program will then tell you what they have needs for at the time. So that's one opportunity. And if you're interested in a more event-driven, I would say reach out to the state office. If you're in Pittsburgh, reach out to our office. If you're in the Philly area, reach out to the people in Philly. And we can kind of let you know what's going on. Right now, we're a little bit, not really doing events, so we don't need many registration volunteers, but yeah.
And I know you have a virtual event coming up that we wanted to make sure we had time to talk about.
Yes.
As many reps as possible. Is that by any chance go off the acronym Amrap, or was that just me making it up when I was?
You are not making anything up. You got it. So we're doing an Amrap, and I can kind of give you a real quick history on how this was born. This would have been our 4th year hosting an event in the Pittsburgh area called the Uncaphalon. And we called it that because it's actually not a decathlon. It is an 11-event decathlon style track and field. And we have had so much fun with this. So what we have done over the last 4 years is we have had 10 physical events, that we have had people compete against one another, and they form teams. So each team is co-ed, has 5 members, and then we unify it, because unifying is a really big movement with Special Olympics, unified sports. They're in high schools now. There's unified teams for bocce and track and field and all sorts of cool stuff that's going on. And it's a huge movement with Special Olympics. So we unified this fundraising event by placing a Special Olympics athlete on each team. So as you formed your team to compete in this decathlon, beautiful Shenley Park on a Sunday morning, we were giving you an athlete. And the goal was, during those few months that you were getting yourselves ready, because it is actually a physically demanding event, and as you were getting ready, the goal was you would know who your athlete is. You would get to know them. You guys could work out together. We hosted once a week or once a month pop-ups, depending on our availability, at gyms all over the city, and invited everybody to come with us. So the last 4 years, we have been having so much fun with this, building this sense of community and having all these cool things go on, that as people were signing up and fundraising for this event and getting to know the athletes, we were building towards this one really cool day where we had this awesome track and field event. And I want you to think back to elementary school when you did like your track and field day, and everybody was like so excited. And so we had a giant track and field day for, all these corporations in the city of Pittsburgh. And it was going really well. And then this year we were super excited, and COVID came and kind of smashed our party a little bit. So we thought, what are we going to do? We have to do something. And we realized that one year we had an Amrap as one of our physical events, and thought, you know what? This is what we're going to do. We're going to take the event this year. And since we can't be together, we're going to choose one physical event. Keep that fundraising component, because that's really important for our organization to continue moving forward, is that fundraising piece, and do a virtual event. People can post pictures of themselves doing this AMRAP challenge. They can, speed up the video, put it on there, smack their social media with it, tell everybody that they did it, and ask people to join them. So we put together the Uncaphalon Amrap challenge. And yes, you were right, as many rounds as possible. It's a 10-minute duration. There's 5 exercises, 10 repetitions of each of those 5 exercises. So our exercises this year: push-ups, squats, lunges, mountain climbers, and plank jacks. So we were able to modify each of those exercises for various skills and ability levels. And everything is body weight, so you didn't need any kind of equipment. You didn't need to be in a gym to do it. You could just do it. You could do it anywhere from your own home. So 10 minutes, 5 exercises, 10 reps.
And I know that some of the virtual events that are popping up simply because people can't get together, there's a time period, or you have from this date to this date to complete it. Lisa and I just completed a bike ride halfway the length of Florida with that. With AMRAP, is there a specific day or date that people are supposed to do it, or is there a period of days you have to do it, or you should do it within these days?
Yep, there's a time frame, and you only have to do it once. I mean, if you want to do it every day, you're welcome to. We're only asking that you do it once. And the challenge period actually begins on August 16th, and it runs until September 26th. And then on Sunday, the 27th, we're going to have a virtual awards ceremony, and we're going to have a little closing. So the way we've set this up this year, we wanted to keep that unified theme that we've had the last few years that's been so cool. We wanted people to get to know our athletes and understand the organization. So what we did is we actually created 9 teams. So when you go online and you join, so Ben decides he's going to join this and he's going to do the AMRAP. When you go online, you land on a landing page that has 9 Special Olympics athletes from across the state. Each one represents a different region. So on there is a video from them welcoming you and asking you to join their team, and a little bio of them telling all about who they are and why this is important to them. So from there, you can choose the team that you want to be on, help them fundraise, and ask people to join your team. And they all came up with these like cute, clever names. They had so much fun. So we have all different fun team names led by our athletes. And then we gave them a co-captain somebody from all different areas from local organizations and local companies to help them with recruiting, help them with their fundraising. And again, just to unify that and for them to get to know each other. So that is our Amrap this year. We've got 9 really awesome teams that the public can join and get to know our athletes, jump on, do some fundraising, do their Amrap challenge, post their pictures starting the 16th. And then when we all get together on Sunday, we've got a really awesome DJ who's going to DJ this whole thing for us. We're going to have, live music requests and dancing, and we're going to announce the winner of who fundraised the most. So one of our athletes is actually going to walk away as the winner of this event. So what you are doing, aside of promoting awareness for the organization as you're posting your videos and your pictures, you're also helping one of our athletes win the title of being the Amrap champ.
Which hopefully they will have the opportunity to defend in person rather than virtually for 2021.
Yes. And if you guys all want to beat Philly, since we're not headquartered here, then everybody needs to jump on the Pittsburgh athletes team. I'm just saying.
And the nice thing is you can get on and you can look and you can notice which athletes are from Pittsburgh and preferentially say, well, I want to support a local athlete.
Yeah. Any of the athletes. I said to everybody, you know what? You get to know them and see who moves you. Like really, they put their heart and soul into these videos and have so much fun making them.
We've been talking with Jessica Kury. She's the director of special events for the Special Olympics of Pennsylvania. She's told us about how they've adapted to the new normal, which hopefully isn't the long-term new normal. But I think especially interesting is the opportunity to participate in an event called Amrap coming up. We'll have extensive show notes on this. Jessica, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to FitLab Pittsburgh and really promoting and giving the idea that movement is a lifestyle, not just an activity.
Outstanding. Thank you again so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of FitLab PGH, brought to you by Moving to Live. Intro and exit music is Marathon Man by Jason Shaw. Check out the show notes for contact info for our latest guests, links to other information mentioned in the episode, and links to our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast about movement and exercise for professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Your free subscription gets you notified when we release a new episode. Questions, comments, suggestions? Email us at fitlabpgh@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at fitlabpgh and like us on Facebook. If you enjoy our podcasts, please tell your friends about us and consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Make FitLab PGH a go-to place to learn more about movement in the Pittsburgh area. Until next time, keep on moving.